You were never broken. You've only forgotten your wholeness. And today, I'll show you how to come home to it. Hi, my name is Michelle Fondin. I'm the author of 12 published books, including Heal Yourself, A Return to Wholeness, the integration of body, mind, soul, and spirit, and Enlightened Medicine, your power to get well now, an integrative approach to healing the 7 deadly lifestyle diseases. You can find all of my published books on Amazon and Ingram Spark. The links are all below. If you're new to my channel, I want to welcome you here. Thank you for hitting subscribe, click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. Thanks for engaging. Give the video a thumbs up, put a comment in the comment section to say thank you for the video. I talk about wholeness. I talk about coming home to yourself and reintegrating all the aspects of you so that you can feel complete on the inside. And one of the best ways that you can attain this very quickly is through the consistent practice of a silent meditation practice. I teach a mantra-based silent meditation practice. I have a freebie. It's a little instruction into a universal mantra that you can try out for free on my website. I'm gonna put the link below, but if you feel compelled to fast track your sense of returning to self, your sense of healing and wholeness, you can register for my meditation course online at the link below. I am here with my friends, Grogu and Gudetama, 2 different types of Gudetamas. And I have my Grogu tumbler with my Ticino dandelion caramel nut tea. It is extra hot today. It is super hot. Wow. Okay. This is vlog number 17, I believe. So I really wanted to introduce this topic on what in the world do I mean when I say returning to wholeness. Now, in the opening chapter of the introduction of this book, Heal Yourself, A Return to Wholeness, I explain what the word heal means. The word heal comes from the Old English word, which means whole. So heal and whole are synonymous. Therefore, healing is a return to wholeness. But in order to understand what that means exactly, because the Western model does not preach this at all, the Western medical model talks about symptoms, disease, and cures for the symptoms, but not really cures for the root causes of disease. And we're going to talk about that later this week as we continue on this topic of returning to wholeness. And if you have not yet viewed my video on what your body is trying to tell you, I'll put that link here because they are all interrelated. The concept of wholeness is the reintegration. When you were born, you were already whole, right? You don't look at a baby and say, oh, you crazy thing, you're not whole and healed. No, we marvel over the wholeness of a baby. We marvel over the exuberance, the energy, the vitality, the prana of an infant child. We're like, they are so perfect. And often parents and even caregivers and friends and family will just look at that newborn baby and go, this baby is perfection. Why is this baby perfection? Because the baby has not yet learned how to divide aspects of itself. However, us as adults, we have learned over time to become divided within ourselves, to have a lack of a word that I love. We have a lack of congruence, or we have a dissonance in the aspects of ourselves. And when I speak about the aspects of the self, what am I referring to? This is an ancient Eastern philosophy, and it is very pertinent to you today in your daily living and how you carry out your life and your mentality about wellness and healing, because it is real and it does pertain to who you are as a person. And if you have had this puzzle of, why don't I feel well? Why do I get depressed? Why do I get anxious? Why do I get sick? And all of the things that result in you not living your life to the standards that you've set for yourself, you really need to understand this principle of wholeness. So wholeness is the integration of the aspects of the self, which include the environmental body. They include, which is your extended body. They include your energy body, which we spoke about in a video, and I'll post that right here. It is your physical body, the one that we most refer to when we talk about health, healing, and wellness and wholeness. Then it is the mind, the intellect, and the ego. And then the causal body, which is your individual soul, the collective soul, and the universal soul. Now, in this book, Heal Yourself, A Return to Wholeness, I outline all of the aspects of this self, which is called the layers of life. Now, I will speak about this in a different video, but I've already addressed a couple of these things, especially pertaining to the physical body and the energy body. So when we take all those layers of ourself and we have dissonance, right? Dissonance, where things don't work together. So let's take an example that perhaps you can better understand. If you've ever given instruments, various instruments, let's say you give a wind instrument, such as a recorder, to one child who has never picked up an instrument, and a drum set to another child in the same room, a piano or a keyboard to another child who has never played an instrument, and a string instrument, such as a guitar, to another child in the same room who has never played an instrument, and you ask them to play. Now, they don't know how to play because they've never played these instruments. And so if they start strumming the guitar, pounding on the drums, playing the keyboards, and blowing through the recorder, there is going to be something that does not resemble synchronous sound or harmonious sound. It's going to be very dissonant. And it might even hurt your ears. And if they continue and get louder and more enthusiastic, it's really going to get on your nerves. Why? Because the sounds are dissonant. They don't resonate as music as we feel the harmony of music through the notes and the sounds of the instruments, because they clearly don't know how to play. So while they might be making noise, they're not making harmonious sounds, and they're not strumming or playing those instruments together to create a flow of harmonious notes that's going to sound good to the ears and feel good on the skin and the bones and everything that we feel when we hear musical notes played with someone who has learned how to play an instrument. In the same way, when you have dissonance between the parts of yourself, that is when you experience disharmony. That is when you experience things like depression, anxiety, disease, not feeling so good, sadness, a lack of satisfaction in life, because the parts of you that are not working in concert to make you healthy, happy, and whole. Now, we do this to ourselves because remember that baby born who is truly perfect in every way and resonates with life and resonates with joy and happiness and glows with prana, this vital life force, this vital energy, because they have not yet learned to be dissonant? Well, we have it within us to find ourselves again to that state, to the state of the infant that was born in perfection. We have the ability to do that, but through learned behaviors, through societal conditioning, through looking to others for our sense of well-being and looking to others to accept us, to love us, to be with us, and so on, we really create more disharmony within ourselves. And so what is the solution to return to wholeness and making sure that we can gather the aspects of ourselves to reintegrate into a harmonious structure on all levels? We really need to go back to referring to the self, meaning all the answers are inside of you. They're not on the outside, they are all within. And when we stop listening to the exterior world on how we need to integrate the aspects of ourselves, because that never works. Nobody knows what's best for us but us in any way, shape, or form. Then we can start the process of healing, wellness, and wholeness, which can help you to lead your life in a more authentic way rather than trying to disperse yourself in so many different directions to please so many different people, to please society, to please everything else around us, rather than to understand what is right for you and only you. Another reason why the baby infant remains whole for some time before societal conditioning takes over is because they are only concerned with their well-being. They're only concerned with their well-being. They don't care what anybody else thinks. If they're hungry, they're hungry. If they're thirsty, they're thirsty. If their diaper needs changing, their diaper needs changing. If they need a nap, they need a nap. So they're not going to ask anybody's permission for these things to be taken care of. They're going to demand that those things be taken care of. And the reason is because they understand their wellness. They understand their wholeness. Let me give you a few examples so that you can fully grasp what I am referring to when I say your return to wholeness is your job. For example, let's start with the environmental body. And I just thought of this because I know a lot of people that don't live in the geolocation that they would prefer to live in. And I know this was the case for me for many, many years, that I've always wanted to live in California. And at a very early age, in fact, when I was 18 and decided that's where I wanted to go to college and where I wanted to live, my parents, especially my mother, put limitations on that and made a lot of threats against me and my well-being if I were to move to California. And I didn't have the A, maturity, B, the monetary means to move there without my parents' support. And so when you think about it, being in dissonance with your environment even can create dissonance within yourself. Because if you are living in a geolocation or even living in a house that you don't like, or an apartment you don't like, or a city you don't like, or a country you don't like, that creates a lot of dissonance, which also separates you from you because the environment is part of you. It is your extended body. Another example is if you are disconnected from your emotional body, your emotions. So if you do spend a lot of time trying to make sure others are okay, or that making others happy, but not making yourself happy is a priority in your life, there is an emotional dissonance, which everything is integrated. So if there is an emotional dissonance in you, there is certainly also a dissonance in your intellect or thought, a dissonance in your mind, and a dissonance within your body, because your body responds directly towards your emotions. There is no separateness in that. And so if you're constantly pleasing others, but you don't want to please yourself because you're like, that's selfish, then there is that dissonance there, because everybody needs to feel pleasure for themselves first and foremost, especially on an emotional level, because you can't make others happy. They have to make themselves happy. Let's give a final example, which is really the crux of this. If you are separate from your soul, your spirit, your source even, if you ignore that aspect of yourself, your higher spiritual self, knowing that you are non-physical as well as a physical being, if you ignore that for most of your life and say, I have a mind, intellect, and ego. I have a physical body. I've got this covered. I've got this handled. And you ignore your spiritual side, your spiritual essence of who you are. If you ignore that, there is going to be dissonance, because a major part of who we are is our spiritual side. That is major. We are more spiritual than we are physical. We are more spiritual than we are ego. We are more spiritual than we are emotions. We are more spiritual than we are intellect. So if you ignore that piece of you, you're not living in harmony with everything that you are. And a lot of people do live primarily from this space of ego, which I do not say the ego is a bad thing. I will never say the ego is a bad thing. But if you live solely from the ego, as an example, and you're like, hey, I've got this, then oftentimes you're making wrong decisions for yourself and your wholeness and your integrity, because the ego lives a lot out of fear and separateness from others and from source and from your higher spiritual self. Dr. Wayne Dyer used to say, ego means edging God out. I like that. That's pretty cool. I don't know if he was the one that originated that, but it's pretty clever. And so when you're living from ego, you're also in dissonance with the other parts of you, because you're not thinking of your soul and your source as being something that is really leading the way, if you would let it, rather than the ego, which is the individual part of you, which is the personality, which we need. We need our personality, but it is the part that says, I am separate from, or I need to really work hard to make things work. And if I don't get what is right for me, then others will grab it first. So that sense of competitiveness or scarcity or lack mindset. And of course, since all parts are integrated, then that also makes us sick, because it makes our emotions feel bad if we feel like we're constantly in competition with others for resources. And if we feel like we need to fight our way up to the top to get to where we need to be, and then it makes our emotions feel bad, and then it makes our body feel bad. And so it extends outward and outward and outward and outward. And that is how most people live. 97% of the population lives in this way. But I'm here to teach you a brand new way. If you can figure out a way, and like I said before, a meditation is the fastest way to start to reintegrate the aspects of the self that are divided. If you can figure out a way to bring back all the aspects of yourself to play in a symphony, in harmony, rather than in dissonance, I think the word is cacophony. If you can figure out that way, you will have a much smoother life. You will have a life that is healthy, whole, joyful, blissful even. And you will have that point of view of the infant that just came into this world, but who has not yet lost their sense of wholeness. And it is possible. It is absolutely possible. It's just a change in perspective. It's a change in perspective with self-awareness and awareness in all the aspects of yourself and bringing them back into harmony. And it takes a little bit of work and it takes a little bit of practice, but you can do it. And really, that is the starting point. I'm not even talking about the end point here. That is the starting point toward healing. That is where you start. So if you're wondering, where do I start in feeling better? In feeling better from my depression, in feeling better from my addictions, and feeling better from my sickness or my disease or my chronic illness, where do I start in feeling better? That is the starting point. The starting point is recognizing that you are multi-layered, that you are multifaceted as a being, and that as you begin to harmonize all these aspects of yourself, things will snap back into place better and better, and you will begin to feel the harmony within yourself. And out of that, health and wellness will arrive, and you will not have to try very hard at it. It may require some discipline. It may require a new habit like daily meditation, but things will start to work themselves out once you reintegrate those aspects of yourself. So I hope this was helpful, and I certainly hope that this inspired you to think about health and wellness and well-being in general in a very different way than you have conceived of it up until now. I want to thank you so much for joining me here today. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications, and thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Thank you so much for sharing this video with others who might be dealing with illness, a disease, something that is making them feel unwell, that maybe they could be enlightened into realizing this concept of wholeness. Thank you so much for your support of my work. You can purchase one of my 12 published books. You can check out my meditation course, and if you're not convinced that a mantra-based meditation technique is right for you, you can always go into the freebie video that I have on my website. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.